Chapter 4, The Tissue Level of Organization, Part 2. Now we will talk about connective tissues. Remember that connective tissues are the most abundant and widely distributed tissue type. We have muscle tissue, we have nervous tissue, we have epithelial tissues, and everything else, all other tissues in the body, would be connective tissues. Main functions of the connective tissues: binding and support. It means that connective tissues keep organs and structures together, like tendons and ligaments connect bone to bone and muscle to bone. Also support our bones. Connective tissue support our body and our organs. Protection. Our rib cage protects our heart and lungs. Our cranium protects our brain. Insulation. Many organs are surrounded with layers of fat tissue for protection, kidneys for example. And finally, transportation. Blood is a tissue too. It's a liquid connective tissue. So blood transports nutrients, oxygen, wastes through the body. Now you need to know classification of the connective tissues. First of all, there are three main types of connective tissue: connective tissue proper, supportive connective tissue, and fluid. Fluid connective tissue, it's blood and lymph. Supportive, that would be cartilage and bones. And connective tissue proper is divided in two groups: loose connective tissues, they are much softer, and dense connective tissue, those are more solid tissues. Loose connective tissue, we have three types of them: irregular, adipose, and reticular. And dense, two types: regular and irregular. So you're supposed to know this classification and all those types of tissues. And the same classification you can find in table 4.1 in your book. We are starting from connective tissue proper. All connective tissue proper types have something in common. First of all, connective tissues are made of cells that are not connected tightly to each other. Compare with epithelial tissue, tight cells. So cells are separated by what is called matrix. So that is a cell, that is a cell, another cell, another cell, and that is a cell. Everything between the cells is called matrix. And matrix is made of two types of substance. First, it will be ground substance, that what fills the spaces between the cells, and also long structures called fibers. So again, connective tissue is made of two parts: cells, several types of cells, and matrix. And matrix, everything between the cells, is made of fibers, and between fibrous cells there is ground substance. Because there are different types of cells, different types of ground substance, and different types of fibers, we have so many types of connective tissues. First, about cells. Many cells their name ends with blasts. Those are young cells. They are mitotically active. It means they divide a lot and they secrete substances. They end with blasts. For example, fibroblasts, those are cells producing fibers. Mature cells end with sites, ending sites. Fibrocytes would be mature cells. They are not making fibers anymore, but they maintain the fibrous shape and structure. There are also other types of cells: adipocytes, fat cells, different types of white blood cells, mast cells, macrophages, so lots of different types of cells in the connective tissue. Fibers. Three types of fibers that you need to know would be collagen, the long gray structures that do not branch. They are relatively thick, long, and very strong. Next one, elastic fibers. They are green here. They can branch, but not much. and they can be stretched and they recall to original position. They are also long, but not so thick and strong like elastic fibers. Finally, we have thin and heavily branched reticular fibers. Those are the weakest types of fibers. Okay, so we're still talking about connective tissue proper, and there are two main types, loose and dense connective tissue proper. Loose, there are 3 types, dense, there are 2 types. We'll go through all of them. And for each of them, you need to know their structure, be able to describe what cells make this tissue, what fibers, and what is a ground substance. And you also need to know location of that tissue in the body and main functions. Here it is. So description, function, and location for each tissue. We're starting from the adipose connective tissue. That's what you can see under the microscope, and that's just a drawings picture. So description, a lot of cells of one type. Those cells are called adipocytes or fat cells. They look like they are empty. Why? Because their main purpose is storage. They are storage for triglycerides, for fats, and that is reserve food fuel. Okay, that's a function. Also insulation against heat loss and supporting and protecting organs. What else can you say about those cells? The nucleus is sitting on the very side of the cell. Sometimes it even looks like it's outside of the cell. And you cannot see any organelles. The cells look empty. Between the cells there is very little space, very small amount of ground substance, and almost no fibers. Just here and there you will see small amount of reticular fibers. Location, under the skin, around some organs like kidneys, around eyeballs, in abdominal area, inside of the mammary glands in females. Second type, irregular connective tissue. If you look right here, you will see all 3 types of fibers. Here, as you see, long and wide, that would be collagen fibers. Right here, you see also long but branched elastic fibers. Finally, somewhere in between, you see tiny and hardly visible reticular fibers. Matrix is gel-like, and there are plenty of cells, fibroblasts, macrophages, some white blood cells, but mostly you cannot see the cells, you only can see the cell nuclei right here. Functions. This type of tissue wraps and cushions organs, and it can fight bacteria by taking them inside through phagocytosis. It takes part in inflammation, and it also holds connective tissue fluid. Where they are located? Mostly under epithelia of the body. So whenever you have epithelial tissue covering layer under it, very often there will be a irregular connective tissue. Reticular connective tissue. This one is actually easy to recognize if you remember that there is only one type of cells and one type of tissue. So look at this picture. One type of fibers, short branching fibers, reticular fibers, and cells, reticulocytes, plenty of them. This picture looks different, but actually it's just a different dye was used. Again, only one type of cells, and tiny lines between them would be reticular fibers. Here's one more picture. Again, one type of fibers and one type of cells. Functions. They form a soft skeleton of some organs. Organs need to keep their structure. Soft organs, for example, like spleen, like lymphatic nodes, and that type of tissue maintains the shape of those organs. So location mostly in the lymph nodes, in the bone marrow, and spleen. Now we are going to the dense regular connective tissue. So we have dense regular and irregular. It's mostly made of the collagen fibers. All of those lines are thick and strong and long collagen fibers. All of them are parallel to each other, and in spaces between those fibers there are flat cells producing fibers, fibroblasts and fibrocytes. They look like they were squeezed between those fibers. Function. Tendons and ligaments are made of this type of tissue, that's location, and they attach muscles to bones, those would be tendons, and bones to bones, those would be ligaments. This irregular connective tissue looks like a mass, but it's not. It's also made only of one type of fibers, collagen fibers, and one type of cells, fibroblasts. But those fibers are going in all possible directions, back and front and left and right and up and down. So that's why you see the pictures that you see, and the cells are between of those fibers. This irregular connective tissue can withstand tension, and it provides structural strength. We have that type of tissue in our joints, in the dermis of the skin, its lower layer of the skin, and also in submucosa of the digestive tract.